balance, is what we said. I'm confused. I
Well-
guess, maybe I'm the only one.
I'm sorry, I didn't put all the details into the PowerPoint. Teresa already disciplined me for having too many slides for you. So I was gonna go through the PowerPoint at a high level and let us look at the details on paper. But I think we are gonna have a follow-up conversation on that. So if you see anything that jumps out at you that doesn't look right, or that you wanna call out, please do. But we can confirm the details.
Just to add to the mayor's comments, you've got to be careful with operating in the black, because normally speaking in a business, operating in the black means that you're operating with a P&L that's profitable. But we also have to replace our reserves, so that what we've got to do is also, as well as operating the black, is to start having increased cash flow, and the two don't always go together. So, I mean, we've been using our reserves for the last few years, and so we need to also look at ways in which we can, add to our reserves.
And again, I think that one of the things that we need to continue to do also, and I noticed that it was on the finance committee meeting, is part of this, which is not necessarily here, but continue the allocations to our
Oh, the PERS?
yeah,
Funded PERS?
yeah, our funded PERS and our healthcare costs that we're putting away. Continue to allocate in there and continue to pay that down, so it's not an albatross on future councils. So that, since we're back to looking at the detail, that's one of the
But
things.
that gets into financial policies, I think.
Yeah.
I think the list is good here that you have, and I think you've got everything covered.
I'm not sure where we are, and I don't want to speak out of turn, but it seems like we've gone all over the place, so I'm having trouble figuring out if I'm out of turn or not. Measure A. Didn't Measure A used to bring in like $40,000?
Where are we looking?
I'm looking at page 8 of 26, funding revenue sources, Elizabeth, I'm sorry.
Those are slides.
Yes, well, you have pages, I assume, so it's on, what I have is page 8.
I don't know.
It's a pie chart.
It says funding revenue sources.
The pie chart I have, but it's not, okay.
Yes. I had thought Measure A brought in a lot more than $10,000.
Measure A, which,
Yeah, it's on funding/revenue sources 2012, 2013. It's got a pie chart, and then there's a box down on the bottom right that says 2.68 million forecasted.
If we can respond to that when we present the CIP, then I think that would be the best way, but maybe Mike can.
Well, the response to that is, what's on the pie chart is the funding sources of the amounts that were proposed
For the capital improvement budget.
But for this fiscal year, that is not the total revenue. The total revenue for Measure A is $200,000, approximately
That's right,
$200,000 per year.
Yeah.
And so what we're only proposing, using a portion of that for the capital improvement program. That's what this pie chart is for.
Doesn't Measure A require that it be used for roads?
It does. I mean, there's a lot of different transportation, and I was going to explain that as part of the CIP presentation, but given the CIP needs we've identified for this fiscal year, what we're really proposing is to fund the majority of that through parcel tax and roadway impact fee, and to basically keep more in reserve Measure A and gas tax, because those are our more flexible funding sources.
I see. Okay. And then just a general question about the amount of the budget. Is that appropriate to ask now or not?
If you could allow us to present the CIP budget, I think that would answer some of the questions.
Okay.
So, Mayor, if you'd like, I can just go through the rest of the goal slides and have any final comments on the goals. We joined some of the goals into a category called organizational development, which includes innovations, efficiency improvements, employee relations, and management items. On your detailed list, it does talk about confirming staffing needs, updating council policies, employee policies and procedures manual, providing high quality customer also innovations such as implementing a comprehensive records management system. Land use and planning, we were able to really find that almost all the areas that we focus our attention for land use management and planning are in the category of protecting community character. So there's quite a list, and we're happy to talk to council members about the details of that, but it really is all focused on protecting community character. Town facilities and infrastructure, we just put them into different categories. They do kind of cross over a little bit. Facilities, of course, include technology, but we listed technology improvements separately, a lot of them related directly to website and electronic technology improvements. And then streets and roads also do include a review of drainage, and I think when we cover the CIP, we'll talk a little bit more about drainage projects. So that was us trying to chunk our items together and provide a summary of what the city will focus on, and we look forward to the council helping us prioritize those items. So I can answer any questions on the goals if you have any, otherwise we're ready to start the CIP presentation.
Thank you.
Okay, so rather than asking the council to approve the goals, we will just go ahead and take the comments you have, and we'll continue to work on focusing on that. And I will pass it on to the Director of Public Works to present the CIP.
Okay. Staff has prepared a 5-year capital improvement program for council's consideration. In doing this, what we try to do is identify expected capital expenditures over the next 5 fiscal years. And as already talked about, although this is a 5-year plan, it will be revisited annually. So what you will be approving when you approve the capital improvement program as part of your operating budget, you will only be approving funding for 1 year. We will also be creating a separate CIP document, but that document will be included as part of your operating budget and will be adopted as part of your operating budget. As far as the process that staff used, the first thing that we did was we identified all funds that were available to fund CIP projects. We worked with finance to obtain fund balances and 5-year revenue projections. We then identified, from our perspective, needs in terms of projects and programs. And then we matched the capital needs with the eligible funding sources with the available funding, because some of the funding sources do have some restrictions. The slide that you see, these are a list of all the funds that are available and part of your proposed capital improvement program. Parcel tax, as you know, was last approved in 2009. It's a 4-year program which expires after fiscal year 2013-14. Allowable expenses for parcel tax includes police emergency response services, street repair and maintenance, drainage facility repair and maintenance, and capital improvements. As established by previous city council policy, 60% of parcel tax is allocated to police services and 40% is allocated to street and drainage. On an annual basis, parcel tax generates approximately $1.86 million per year. Therefore, 40% of that, or $740,000, is available annually for capital improvements. The next item is Measure M. Measure M is a San Mateo County-wide vehicle registration fee approved by voters in November of 2010. Its purpose is for general transportation improvements throughout the county. This is a 25-year program, so Measure M will expire in 2035. As far as how Measure M is allocated, 50% of Measure M funds are used for countywide transportation program, and the remaining 50% are allocated to cities within the county on a formula basis. And based on that formula, the town of Atherton receives about $75,000 per year. The Atherton Library Fund, portion of property tax here in Atherton is dedicated to fund library services. And in the town of Atherton, since revenue generated exceeds the cost of library services provided by San Mateo County, the excess revenue is returned annually. these funds, termed donor funds, is placed in a separate Town of Atherton account since use of these funds are restricted for library purposes only. And this is the account that is the source of funding for the planning, design, and construction of the new library. The next account is Surface Transportation, or STP. This is a federal transportation program. These are federal dollars that are allocated to the state of California. From there, the state of California allocates it to regions, and in this case, the region is the Metropolitan Transportation Commission. And the MTC then allocates it to the counties, and in our case, this is CCAG. And then at the CCAG level, these funds are then allocated on a formula basis. And for this federal transportation, the town of Atherton is, we expect to receive about $350,000, and those funds will be eligible for us in fiscal year 2013 and 14. The next fund is the Association of Bay Area Governments. As you know, ABAG is Atherton's risk liability insurance carrier. And one of the things they do in order to reduce all their members' exposure to risk is they provide a $7,500 grant annually, which the town of Atherton uses to inspect and repair sidewalk defects to prevent claims that may arise through trip and falls. The next fund is Measure A, and as Councilmember McKeithen indicated, this is a sales tax measure. It's primarily used for general transportation purposes. This, again, is a formula-based distribution throughout the county, and the town of Atherton receives approximately $200,000 per year from this fund source. The next one is gas tax. Gas tax revenues are generated from excise tax that everyone pays at the pumps. It is, again, a formula-based distribution based upon population and lane miles. And gas tax is the most flexible transportation funding source that the town or any city has. And the town receives approximately $200,000 a year from gas tax. The next funding source is the road construction impact fee. As you know, this fee is no longer assessed, but the money that we have programmed in the CIP represents fund balances left in this account. The current fund balance is a little over $1 million, and the proposed 5-year CIP utilizes these funds to where it will be depleted in approximately 3 years. And then there's the Atherton Channel Fund. Next slide, please.
And the Atherton Channel Fund is a very small amount that comes in compared to what it used to before Prop 13, when it was bringing in about $160,000 to $180,000 a year, and now brings in about $30,000 to $35,000.
I believe it's around 72,000 per year.
It's increased.
Yeah. The next group of slides is what we are proposing as far as projects and programs, as well as proposed funding over the next 5 years, as well as proposed funding source. So to kind of go through these projects pretty quickly, the first one is roadside drainage improvements. The town of Atherton streets have a number of streets where drainage structures are in need of repair and replacement. There are also areas which experience localized flooding and ponding after rain events due to a lack of underground drainage facilities. So this program will provide funding for improvements necessary to alleviate localized ponding and flooding on Atherton streets. The next project is the Marsh Road Wall. Marsh Road Wall is in need of major repairs. In 2006, a portion of the retaining wall was repaired on an emergency basis. Current construction of the wall is rock and mortar with no real structural design to support the road, to support Marsh Road. So this project is to study and identify all deficiencies along Marsh Road and to have dollars available to make necessary repairs to preserve the structural integrity of Marsh Road and the Atherton Channel. Currently on this project we have an RFP because we are soliciting for an engineering firm to perform the analysis for us, and we expect proposals on this project. It's due back in about 2 weeks.
Can we ask questions now, or do you want us
Yes.
to?
No, why don't you ask questions, because there's a lot of information here.
On that one, are you proposing, Are you proposing sort of patching and repairing each year, or proposing setting aside this amount each year for work to be done in year 3 or thereafter?
In kind of reflecting back on some of the conversation the council already had, what this project is really to repair the drainage channel as opposed to expanding the roadway capacity.
I realize that.
And so several years ago, when the town took a look at this, I think they estimated the cost of improvements was around $2.5 to $3 million. Okay, so that's why we budgeted for that amount. But again, we are in the process of hiring an engineering consultant to really do a thorough review of the structural stability, identify needed improvements. Also, what we're going to be asking the consultant to do is identify, is it possible to be phased? And the reason for that is so that we can, there's a lot of moving pieces here, because there are, through private development, there are opportunities to get funds to improve the roadway capacity, which will affect the cost of this project. And so that's why, we're trying to take a look at different phases so we can maximize the amount of money that we have through the town for improving the channel, as well as through private development to pay for expanding the roadway.
Well, we also
Forgive
will
me.
be asking for FEMA funding. We talked about this last time in the last meeting that we had. I'm sorry for interrupting, but we said we were going to also go after federal grants as well as statewide grants for this type of funding, and it doesn't look like, I'm not saying you're precluding it, but the presentation here doesn't seem to imply that.
2 things. One, forgive me if I'm dense, but I still don't see, we patched it a couple of years ago because we knew that it really needed complete reconstruction. Part of it was, and this is probably not the right term, but almost the liquefaction of the roadbed underneath the marsh, which was creating the vibrational effect, according to Duncan, which was impacting that side of the channel. So they were thinking that whole side had to be replaced, and that we weren't ready to fund. So I realize you have an RFP going out, and they're going to study it all, but are you anticipating, based on what you said, doing this in stages, or completely redoing it? Or you don't know, it will depend upon what the whoever is chosen to do this study determines is the best way to handle it?
The answer is we really don't know. If the study determines that all that needs to be done and it's going to cost $2 million, well, then the town will have an opportunity to do it all, because over the next 2 years, we are proposing that level of funding. If the study comes back and says you need to redo it all and it costs $5 million, well then, we need to either find additional dollars, or that's one of the reasons why we're going to be asking the consultant to take a look at different phasing. And because my guess is that the condition of the channel is not uniform through the entire length, and the length that we're talking about is really that isolated length between along Marsh Road. And so I don't believe that the deficiencies are uniform. So that's one of the reasons why we are asking the consultant to take a look, and if the cost of repair is greater than the budget, then we at least then have the opportunity of potentially phasing it.
Well, and then my second question is, even if it's not greater than the budget, what I would like to see is a dropped footnote from this saying that, this all is also contingent upon the going after grant money, federal, state, and also developing some kind of partnership with Menlo Park and its projected developments and the Facebook project. And the county. Well, the county I was about to get to. About 4 or 5 years ago, we met with San Mateo County to try and determine whether or not it made any sense to form like a JPA, because it's just too much responsibility for Atherton, and we were not getting enough money. If it's $70,000, that's great, but it was about $30,000 then. And needless to say, they were not enthusiastic about it. We met with Mr. Maltby, because no one wants, since we're saddled with the obligation, no one wants to undertake it gratuitously. But it's something that also should be explored, whether or not we should have this obligation. This channel services a lot more than Atherton. It services Menlo Park, Woodside, all that debris coming down from the horse stables has always been a problem. Unincorporated San Mateo County. And so I think that that's something else that needs to be explored. But it should all be in a footnote, even if it is only $2 million. I don't see where we should be paying the bulk of that $2 million. And so that should be contingent upon exploring these other options.
Yes, and staff will definitely do that. And as you know, we've already been exploring the options from the development side, but we will also explore with the county as well as any state and federal grants. To be honest, on the state and federal grants, we're aware of most of them, and we just don't, those are very difficult to get. And a lot of them in the past have been in the form of earmarks, which, as you know, simply don't exist anymore.
Well, but it
So-
might be in the form of pedestrian and bicycle paths. If indeed it's going to increase, that may be the hook that sort of gets you some money in there. I don't know.
Mike, the other thing that we've discussed, I don't remember recently, was that covering the channel so that another lane could be put in Marsh Road. I'm not in favor of that. I don't want you to get the wrong idea. But if that happened, if we covered the channel so that we could put bike lanes in, for instance, wouldn't that change what we have to do with the wall?
Well, yes, basically a culvert, box culvert would replace the existing channel, so therefore you would no longer need the wall.
Yeah.
And in fact, covering the channel is an option that we're looking at, because quite frankly, that's really the only way you can increase the vehicle capacity of Marsh Road, and in addition to that, get the additional width that would be necessary in order to provide a path that bicycles and pedestrians can use.
Yeah.
But you still have the cost of the box culvert and covering it. It doesn't totally alleviate the need for
No,
the
but
box
what
culvert
would-
and enclosing the
Do we have
channel.
any idea what the box culvert would cost?
We did some very preliminary cost estimates, and if we were to cover the road or to install a box culvert instead of simply repairing the wall and constructing a road over that box culvert, it pretty much doubles the price of the project.
It's much more expensive.
Well, this is, if we're gonna challenge the Facebook EIR, which I hope we are, this is the kind of stuff that we ought to be trying to get them to pay for.
Yes, and in fact, as part of our requested mitigation measure, that is in fact what we're asking for, is constructing a new lane on Marsh Road for approximately 600 feet.
Okay.
But what Councilmember Dalby was suggesting though is at a minimum, if you put in the box culvert, and don't put the road on top of it, but leave that space available for bicycle lanes right now, you don't need a lot of paving there, because right now there's a bicycle lane that's on a dirt path. So, that's one of the things when they're doing the study and they're coming up with the recommendation. We shouldn't be planning on doing everything, assuming that Menlo Park and Facebook and the county and the federal government or Woodside won't give us any money to help with this situation. But the minimum might be do the culvert, which might be a little more expensive, and then just cover it up and have a dirt path out there for people to walk on safely,
Yeah.
for people to ride their bikes on safely without having to fight the traffic. Because right now, you drive down there on a bike, there's nowhere to go.
Correct.
And well, you have to think, this is not the spot area where the open culvert is, but, what happens once you get, past that? There's gotta be bike lanes, continuing on to the rest of the road up to 101. But I agree that that a study needs to be done about how to make that area of our transportation corridors safer for pedestrians, for bicyclists,
Yeah.
in any way possible. So I agree.
Yes, and staff is taking note of all your comments, and we definitely get the message that, you're looking for different alternatives. One of the things, that's really drove us issuing the RFP about a month ago is that the very first thing we need to figure out is, from a safety issue, how stable is the wall? and what repairs need to be made immediately or at least in the next couple of years. And so that's going to be the starting point, and then from there, then we can explore other options as far as different ways of handling the channel and ways that we can expand opportunities for bikes and pedestrians. If there's no more, any other questions on the Marsh Wall project? If not, the next project on our list is a Series street light repair and replacement. The town of Atherton still has several isolated locations that are using an antiquated and unsafe street lighting system called Series street lights. Staff proposes to have a plan engineer to identify these locations and fund a replacement program to upgrade these systems to provide a safe, modern, and energy-efficient street lighting system. The next project is actually...
Just before you go by that one, at one point, we also looked at replacing all of our streetlights with low-energy streetlights. I mean, streetlights that would use a lot less electricity. And I think at that time, they thought that the initial cost would be too much. Have you looked at that recently?
No, have we?
Well, yeah, we've recently had an energy survey done in the facilities as part one, and we'll be getting that report back hopefully as early as this week. And then the second part of that energy survey will be the street lighting system. We did do some upgrades from 187 watt incandescent lights that we ran here for many years over in West Atherton recently, kind of through the general fund. But we've got some offers from PG&E to go LED.
Yeah.
But you know, we were gonna look with this Energy Watch program to do a test of those LED lights, possibly in the parking lot at the park, to see if we like LED lighting in this town. A lot of our lights are station lights, where you're looking at them 360, and I don't know if LED's gonna work there. I mean, we really need to, before we go put those in, really look at them.
What, can you send us an email, since it's not on the agenda, as to what the proposal is that PG&E's been offering on LED lights?
Yes.
I mean, it would be interesting for us to know what, if it's like the water company had a great proposal recently that, I don't know, any of you have taken advantage of it, but it's been incredible. So I don't know what this one is, but I think the council should be aware of it.
Well, we also should look at, Mike, I think in the last meeting, we talked about on some of these ones where we're saying, hey, we want to do this because it's going to allow us to save money in the long run.
Yeah.
We said that we would like these things proposed back to us on a return on investment basis.
Correct.
So in your analysis on bringing forward, as you move forward in this process together, a little bit of your rough calculations on what the ROI payback is going to be. So, I mean, it would be more compelling for us to be listening to these things if you say this is a 1-year payback or a 1.5 year payback, as opposed to there's no payback here information. So,
And that's one of the nice things about the programs that PG&E has, is that really is kind of how they base it on, is, you know, they give you the cost, they provide to you what the incentives they have, and then they provide you also the payback period and energy savings, and normally it's pretty attractive.
But certainly as we go forward with replacing these series streetlights, we can look at lower cost energy fixtures.
Absolutely.
And we should.
Correct.
But in the meantime, I think do this LED test in the park, because that may be an easy one.
Until we do this repair, we can't run any other kinds of street lights out there, because remember, a series street light is like the old Christmas tree lights, where one bulb goes out, they all go out, one wire going around, and that,
Where are they? I think I know.
yeah, Lloyd Park
Uh-huh.
has the largest area that's yet to be undone. Then there's a few isolated areas around Burns, and a couple of spots still over in Lindenwood.
Yeah, I think mine is one.
And then one over in West Atherton, one light in West Atherton.
The next program is a sign replacement, and this is just a nominal program. Every year we just putting money into an account to pay for any street sign repair that needs to be repaired and replaced during the course of the year. Also, this would be a funding source for some of the suggestions, recommendations that come out of the Transportation Committee as far as safety improvements throughout the town.
Isn't that typical of what we spend, 20,000 a year? Seems high, doesn't it, Jim? Based on what we approve on the Transportation Committee, when we're looking at every $50 sign.
Yeah.
Well,
I
again,
haven't seen a
this is,
$50 recommendation from the Traffic Transportation Committee yet. There've
We're
all
looking
been
at every
multiple thousands of dollars
Yeah.
is what's coming forward, 3, 5, so I don't know, so it's kind of.
No, we don't usually go 5, that's very high.
and again, this is
Okay.
for more than just the Transportation Committee. This is also for just, signs that are worn out that need to be replaced during the year.
Well,
And
does this include the keep clear signs, for instance, that we were gonna put at James and at Linden?
Well, actually, the source of funding for those would probably be in the next category, which is traffic safety. And again, this is another program that we're proposing to fund at around $50,000 a year. And the purpose of this program is to fund, traffic, vehicular, and pedestrian safety improvements that are identified throughout the year.
By the way, is that happening?
Yes, well, it is, but what we've been delayed upon was, we have these periodic, whenever we're gonna do it, then it rains. And so then we need to have the pavement dry, so it is scheduled, and hopefully it will happen here very soon. Next slide, please. The next program is to redo the bike lanes throughout town, the thermoplastic. And so this is another program to ensure that we can keep our bike lane facilities well marked. The next program, accessibility improvements, it's about $17,500 a year. $7,500 of that is again from ABAG, and that's for the sidewalk inspection and repair. And then the other
What
10,000.
sidewalks do we have? What sidewalks are getting inspected? Over at Lloyd Park, that's it?
Around town center here in front of the library, and then all the concrete structures over at the park in front of the pavilion.
But before we go to that, could I just ask a question about the bike lane? Is that for new bike lanes? Because we don't have many bike lanes.
No, these are for existing bike lanes, like along Middlefield, that, the striping is not very visible, and so just improving
I mean, I'd
those.
like to have a lot more bike lanes.
Yeah, I think it's only Valparaiso. The one on Middlefield, the one on Middlefield is the dirt path.
That's right.
There's no striping.
30,000 seems like a lot of money, doesn't it?
It does.
It sounds like that Mountain View graffiti person who was charging for painting swings 400 square feet of the swing.
And again, these are programs, so if it's not needed, it won't be used, and it will be carried over to the next year. The next program is, and actually the next two programs, street patching and street seals. This is your annual street rehabilitation program. The street patching is kind of the first thing that's done, where all the streets that will be sealed, they're reviewed, and then basically all the isolated areas where we have structural failures are dug out and repaired prior to the street sealing. The next program is a bridge inspection program, and this is something new. The town of Atherton has a number of bridges, and so we really do need to be inspecting those on an annual basis. And so that's the purpose of those programs. This program is to provide funding to do those inspections and any repairs that are identified. What our plan would be here is to actually contract with Caltrans. Caltrans contracts with a lot of local agencies because they have the structural people with the knowledge to do these type of reviews. So our plan would be to contract with them. And then we wouldn't be able to do all of our bridges in 1 year, but with this funding, we'll be able to put all the bridges on a schedule and make, again, any recommended repairs. that
How many
Caltrans.
bridges do we have? I don't know.
I don't know what the bridges.
Yeah, I know of a couple.
Whenever we have an over 4.0 earthquake, yours truly goes out and does a structure repair of the bridges in this town.
So how many are there?
If you follow the channel, there's 2 going in and out of the park, right? And then there's the bridge that's under Middlefield Road that connects the channel from Watkins to,
Oh, yeah.
right? There's the one that goes across El Camino Real, there's Elena, there's Berry, there's Alameda, there's all the bridges up
Yeah,
Walnut Road.
at this, part of this also
There's
is
a lot
is
of
for
bridges.
staff to do an inventory and locate all of them, but what our belief is that there's probably well over 30.
Huh.
Okay.
So a lot of it has to do with the channel.
Next slide, please. This next program is basically a pretty major street resurfacing project. This is for Atherton, Middlefield, and Fair Oaks. We actually have this project planned for fiscal year 2013-14, because as I previously mentioned, that's the year where we expect we'll be receiving our federal surface transportation program funds.
Middlefield Road was just redone 3 years ago, 4 years ago?
You know, it's probably a major reconstruction, but what we're talking about here is the slurry sealing just to keep it in good condition.
Well, doesn't slurry seal add like an inch or two?
No.
It doesn't? That's, what is that adds that?
That's called an overlay.
The overlay.
Yeah,
So
that's-
slurry
that's-
seal is just that black sort of tar stuff that goes on top. Okay.
Makes it quieter.
Because Middlefield was done recently, Fair Oaks wasn't that long ago, and Atherton Avenue, they've been doing in pieces for years. So it's all pretty recent. How do you determine when you need it, beyond just doing it?
Well, there's something called a payment
That's not
management.
resurfacing.
There's something called a payment management program, which the town has. And, you know, and basically we use that to identify which streets should be done and how much should be invested every year
Yeah.
to keep streets to a certain condition.
But you know, we talked about that before, and that kind of says that this street needs to be done every 4 years, every 5 years, and the last time we had a discussion of this, we said, but we don't need to do it, but it doesn't need to be done. In other words, irrespective of whether it's on your plan or not, we should make sure that it needs to be done before we do it.
Well, that's what I'm asking, because there are a lot of other streets I know that are more beyond 4 years that haven't been sealed, or either with slurry or with, now I know these are major thoroughfares, so it's different, but the pavement index has to do with a different thing. It has to do with the sort of the